Hello, and welcome back to Punctual Politics. I'm Dawson Iasillo, Senior Opinion Editor.
And I'm opinion writer Jackson Hatcher.
And I'm Natalie Hill, Senior News Editor. Getting straight into this episode's topic, in February, the Nebraska Secretary of State office approved 2 online sports betting petitions that are currently in circulation in Nebraska. One of these aims to amend Nebraska's constitution to legalize online sports betting. The other one aims to make changes to state statute and outlines the rules that would go along with that online sports betting. The one to legalize it would need signatures from at least 10% of registered voters in Nebraska, which equates to about 125,000 voters to make the ballot. The other would need about 7%, which is about 88,000 voters. Both need 5% of voters in at least 38 out of 93 counties in Nebraska. Signatures are due July 3rd, which is 4 months prior to the general election, if these are going to make it to the ballot. So my first question for you guys is just following simply from that. Do you think it will make it to the ballot?
I think it probably will. I mean, Nebraska is one of the few states where it's not legal. And that's, not because, we have like a real strong stance about it, It's just when it became legal nationally through a Supreme Court decision, I want to say 2022 or 2021 or something, a lot of states just snapped real quick to implement laws to do it. But there's a lot of want in basically the entire country for it. So I think it'll probably end up on the ballot, and it'll probably pass if it does end up on the ballot.
Yeah, I think it would be almost silly for it not to end up on the ballot. I think it definitely will. I mean, we see people all around Lincoln all the time with their petitions out. So
don't leave me alone.
Yeah. I think Nebraska is just kind of stupid for not passing sports betting in Nebraska yet, because it's such a college-focused, state. I mean, there's so many kids that go to UNL or Creighton or UNO or Kearney or Doane, or there's so many colleges in Nebraska, and sports betting is definitely a college age thing to do. And so I think that there's a real market for that in Nebraska as well.
My next question is, do you think that if sports betting were legalized in Nebraska, it would have a meaningful benefit on our economy?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we would have increased revenue and we have, budget shortfalls. But, I think so would raising taxes, but that wouldn't help people, right? Mm-hmm. Any revenue or, benefit to our overall economy that sports betting could beget would be quite literally taken from the pockets of very vulnerable people who lose a lot of money sports betting. So, I mean, yes, if you only care about the numbers on our budget, but no, if you care about vulnerable people.
Yeah. In other states, sports betting really hasn't impacted the economy at all. It kind of ends up leveling out, but...
Well, a lot of the time, the money that comes from things like this, I'm going to use the example of a lottery, but that comes from things like this, it's just money that they use as a slush fund to fund anything else. So they'll be oh, we're funding all of this, we're taking all the lottery money and we're putting it into public schools, but they're taking all the public school money and putting it into whatever else that they need to spend money on. So I'm I mean, it's just creating more money to slosh around. I mean, not really I mean, if there were some framework oh, all of this money is going to go towards I don't know, maybe things that public health campaigns against problem gambling or something like that, then maybe it would be better. But right now it's probably just going to end up being money that they'll use to fund other things that we can't really afford.
Right.
Yeah. So some of the pushback against these petitions have been that, sports betting has, negative effects sometimes. It's not necessarily good for you to do. Do you think it's up to the state to consider that when they decide what should be legal?
I think it should be. I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and say oh, the state should ban sports, sports betting or anything. But the same way I wouldn't be like, oh, you need to ban alcohol or cigarettes or whatever, even though these have, well documented, verifiable negative effects on
Yeah.
people. But, there should be some regulations on, like, how you can market, which, looking at the other states, there's not really any regulations
Yeah.
on those things.
It's just kind of silly that Nebraska's going to take this stance of, like, we want to protect our people and then have, like, no conceal and carry laws. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a far-fetched, hypocritical claim that we really care about our people when alcohol's legal,
Yeah.
cigarettes is legal, carrying around a random gun is
Yeah, I
legal
mean-
in Nebraska. I mean, these are all things that are probably bad for us, but
Yeah, but like, the amount of money that gambling brings in is like, well, most politicians are like, I kind of don't care,
yeah.
and it's easier, I think, for like politicians to not consider it because I think with like when it comes to like cigarettes or alcohol or some of these other things that you might call like that they put like sin taxes on. There's like some sort of sense that if you do have a gambling issue, it's like your fault. You are like a weak-willed person, and
Right.
that's just like a really like bad way to look at it, because it is the business model. The business model for these sports betting companies is people are going to lose their lives from this, and we're gonna take the money from them. Basically, that's why they're so profitable.
Yeah.
And it's not like I think that these companies can't really exist without exploiting people. Whereas like if you look at like alcohol, they could be like an industry that survives if people use it in moderation, but that's just not the case for gambling.
Yeah, and I mean, same with alcohol. In small doses, it's fine, but it can easily be taken advantage of, and so can gambling. But I guess I obviously see the difference between gambling and alcohol. They're very different effects on a person, but the same addiction mindset is kind of the same.
Yeah.
And so yes, I do think the state has the responsibility to protect, but I don't think they're doing that job already. And if we're really going to protect citizens, then let's get more mental health outreach and more rehabilitation programs in our state rather than worrying about gambling.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm like so against this, because like if they had like an idea of like, oh, all the revenue we gain from sports betting we're gonna put into our mental health system, that would be great.
Yeah.
But they're not
But
gonna
they're
do
not
that.
gonna
They're
do
gonna
that.
they're gonna like
Exactly.
take that and use it as an excuse to like cut taxes or
Yeah.
something.
Nope, for sure.
And I don't know. I think gambling is just like as an industry. I think I find it more like reprehensible than like the tobacco industry or the alcohol industry, because they try to act like it's not an issue, right? There are laws that dictate like how these other like things like alcohol and cigarettes can operate. You can't like market to children.
Right.
Gambling companies, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
You can't the fact that like every Super Bowl commercial is like a sports betting ad, I think that's an issue, right?
Yeah.
And especially when they get like big celebrities like Kevin Hart or Drewski or whatever. Like you're marketing towards like young impressionable people who are going to ruin their lives, and like you can't do that with cigarettes. You're not allowed to market towards children or vulnerable
for sure.
people. I'm like, why are we if we're not I think we should be considering those things before we legalize sports
I
betting.
can completely
Right.
agree with that.
But that would be like a federal thing, and
Yeah.
then you're counting on the federal government to
Right.
do something, and that's
Don't hold your breath.
yeah,
Don't
don't hold your breath. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously in Nebraska, in person, sports betting is legal. You can go to a casino and place bets. This is just for online betting. Do you think that there's like a meaningful difference between the two that should have one be legal or makes it more ethical, anything like that?
Absolutely. I think what makes well, I'll ask you something. Gambling is an addictive thing, and then you're putting it on the most addicting thing that we all own, our phones. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like they gamify it, right?
Right.
And I think it's especially worse because it makes it easier for companies to exploit vulnerable
It
people.
normalizes it.
Yeah, I mean, there have been like reports and studies, coming out and like leaks from whistleblowers from these companies. They have a ton of data on their users,
Yeah.
and they know if you're a problem gambler. They like sort you into buckets.
Well, it's the same reason why, like, Instagram, like,
Mhm.
theories or your TikTok feed is gonna be, like, it's gonna be the same. It's the same thing. It's not like our phones are keeping anything private.
Yeah, and I'm like, when you put gambling on your phone, I mean, it becomes so much easier. I mean, harder to ignore it, right?
Yeah.
They talk a lot about like when you're addicted to something, like don't put yourself in situations where you're around the thing you're addicted to. Don't go to parties where there might be alcohol. Don't, go into like a smoke shop, right? How can you, if you're a problem gambler, if you're a gambling addict, how can you hide from your
Escape
phone?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you hide from your phone? People struggle with it even when they do have to go to like a house or
Yeah.
like, to bet.
For sure.
So when it's on your phone, you're gonna just do it like naturally.
Yeah,
The same way you just
absolutely.
open Instagram just cause.
Yeah,
You're
it's
gonna
just something-
start gambling
it's-
just cause.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question, and I think we can kind of gauge potentially your answers based on the culmination of all these previous questions, but I guess just, do you think it should be legalized personally?
Nope. Every time someone has come up to me and asked me to sign that petition, I'm like, there's no way I'm signing that, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, I go back. Like we kind of touched on, I'm all for it being legalized if there was in a sort of like good thing to come out of it. But like we said, if the money that we got from sports betting was going to like rehabilitation or mental health outreach or health campaigns or things like that or infrastructure things, even our Nebraska's infrastructure so outdated, but that's not what it's going to be used. I think if it does pass, there's a good use that money gets us out of bankruptcy, which I don't really have any interest in. That's the government's fault, not my fault.
Yeah.
And so long answer is like, yes, I think it could be great if there were incentives from it, but unfortunately there won't be because
Yeah.
we're in Nebraska.
So
no.
I just think plain and simple, it's not an industry worth fostering in our
Yeah.
state. Like the petition people will be like,
It's not
Oh.
top of the list for sure.
the petition people will be like, oh, this will create jobs. I'm like, oh, you mean jobs basically stealing from our young people?
Right.
Oh, this will bring up revenue. You mean from the pockets of
Right.
young people? I mean, it's an exploitative industry, and anyone that tries to claim it's not is just not being real with you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for tuning into Punctual Politics. Just a reminder that the views expressed on this podcast do not represent the views of the Daily Nebraskan as a whole.
Please be sure to follow us on social media at The Daily Nebraskan, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Daily Nebraskan, and be sure to stay up to date with Punctual Politics for new episodes every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We'll see you next time.